on her love of people. She is a married mother of 4 children and 2 grandchildren. A stay-at-home mom in her early 20s, Michelle began her sales career with Mary Kay to help bring some support to her family. She continued down the road of sales and spent over 11 years as a senior account executive for top radio stations in the Little Rock market, creating customized, cutting-edge marketing plans for businesses. Her dream of becoming a female business owner came true when she began her own ceramic coating company for home exteriors. Michelle's family is her priority, and her faith is her foundation. She teaches multiple classes at her church and serves in various community groups, including the Arkansas Fundraising Professionals, where she is vice president of the membership committee. Michelle is a member of the Little Rock Founders Lions Club, and she mentors women going through difficult situations through the nonprofit Women Equipped. She is passionate about everything she does with the goal of making a difference. And her desire to make a difference, along with her sales background and leadership skills, led her into the nonprofit world, where she has been in development and fundraising for the past 6 years. Michelle's heart for service makes her a wonderful addition to our Rotary Club. Congratulations and welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Summer and Molly. Congrats, Michelle. Welcome to Club 99. So great to have you here as we continue our new member streak into the new year. We are now at 23 straight meetings. Technicality last week, we welcomed, but we didn't formally introduce. So I'm going to count those 2 as back to back. So let's keep it going, y'all. Thank you, John Monroe, for your leadership with our Catholic High School Reach Interact program. Thank you, John. And President Christopher Adams, thank you for being here. He's also student body president at Catholic High, so let's give him a welcome. Thank you. For those of you who love college football like me, you'll probably share in this. Last night was a fairly rough one for our president-elect. Natalie Godotti was at the game at SoFi Stadium. As many of you know, she's a proud Horned Frog. And that was pretty rough. So anyway, when you see her, she could probably use a hug. Anyway, congrats to the Bulldogs. If we got any Georgia Bulldogs as members, please raise your hand. I'd love to congratulate you as well. But I'm only familiar with Natalie being a TCU Horned Frog. High profile recently, I think Major Maccabee was featured. And then Tammy and Mark Davis had a beautiful story about when they met and fell in love. It's a really cool story. So be sure and check that out. Thank you, Tammy, for your leadership. And thanks to Rachel, Club 99 member, for all her work to spotlight and honor those in Club 99. Please save the Club 99 Day at the Races date at Oaklawn. It's going to be March 3rd. To help us in our planning, please respond online. Look for an email from us indicating whether or not you want to come or not. And then B, if you'll ride the bus, it'll certainly help us with our planning for that super fun day. Next week, please make plans to join us for a special program with photojournalist and author Chris Usher of Behind the Velvet Rope. This guy's phenomenal. He's going to be an amazing program. If anybody wants to check out his book, feel free. He covered the Clinton administration and the Bush White House as a photojournalist for Newsweek and I think U.S. News and World Report. Got some incredible photos that he took of behind the scenes of the people in action. So it's really fun to kind of work alongside Chris. Great guy. We also have some amazing programs thanks to Chris Bond and our membership and our recruiting, our program team. The next 3 weeks, in addition to the meeting today with Judge and Will, are just going to be dynamite. So please make every effort to be here. You'll regret it if you don't. All right. We need your help. Our literacy lab pilot kicks off next week. We've been talking about this for over a year now, and we need more of you to help. We have 11 volunteers signed up. We need 20 more. Let's figure out a way to partner with someone. If you can't commit to all 8 weeks, let's figure out a way to maybe partner with someone and you take every other week, and let's just figure it out. But we have a need for 31 volunteers for this program, and we want to make a difference. We also, for those of you that are interested in the Dunbar Appreciation Luncheon, that's going to be this Thursday. We could use volunteers for that one, but we also need mentoring volunteers as well for the Dunbar program. We need 5 more to join us for that effort, to mentor with a child in middle school at Dunbar for the rest of this semester. Get with Dan Parker. He'll give you all the information you need, but we could really use your help. The reason I say this is because many of you, and I've heard you, and I've heard others in the community complain and bicker and frustration about our murder rate in our community. Be honest, a lot of you have said something about that. I hear people talk about the fact that they're alarmed every time they hear about gunshots going out in our community, whether it's West Little Rock, Southwest, the Heights, or downtown, or the River Market. Everybody's talking about it. If you're complaining about it and you want to make a difference, this is one way we know you can make a difference. Just a small impact that if all of us make, like a little rock with pebbles that spread out, we can all make a difference. So please think about how you can do your part in either mentoring a young person who needs some attention or someone who needs a little bit extra help with their homework or with learning how to read. This is the most important thing I believe that we can do at Club 99 to make a significant impact in Little Rock and our broader Central Arkansas community. So please think about how you can help out and let us know, because today is the day. We need to hear from you to get you plugged in and get you trained up for next week. All right, moving on. Scolding done. All right. As many of you know by now, during our La Petite Roche Tricentennial, I will spend my year as president telling unique stories about our region's past 300 years. With today's program about one of our city's great cultural institutions, I'd like to share the story of another legendary downtown attraction. Over the years, we've had a number of downtown theaters. Many of you may recall or have heard of the Princess or the Best, the Gem, the Center, the Savoy, the Palace, the Crescent, the Capitol, the Rex, the Rialto, and the Roxy. But it was the Kempner Opera House that outshined them all. Opened on September the 20th, 1910 at 516 Louisiana Street by prominent merchant and Jewish leader Ike Kempner and his brother Dave, both early forerunners of downtown shopping destinations. Ike was a fascinating businessman who had his hand in at least 28 separate Arkansas firms, 28 businesses, from shoes and women's clothing to dry goods, cold storage, and banking. Jeff, what do you think? Can you do all this? I mean, it's amazing. He was also the president of the Concordia Association, the leading Jewish social club in the city. And some of you may remember the story about that a few weeks ago. But along with M.M. Cone, he was one of the first prominent retail icons in the city. Others have followed: Gus Blass, the Pfeiffer brothers, William T. Dillard, among others. And with seating for more than 1,300, the Kempner Opera House was designed by New York architect Henry Beaumont Hertz. With the facade in a Sullivan-esque style, it was later altered into an Art Deco style with stucco and ceramic tile highlights. It was the site of spectacular stage shows, a production of Ben-Hur involving live elephants, The Garden of Allah featuring live camels, downtown Little Rock, as well as operas, plays, vaudeville shows, even 3-time presidential candidate Williams Jennings Bryan, the Ziegfeld Follies, and magician Harry Houdini, right here in Little Rock. By the late 1920s, with motion pictures a booming business, it was transformed into a movie house and reopened as the Arkansas Theater in 1929. The renovated theater staged road shows, animal acts, wrestling matches, and motion pictures that could be raised and lowered before the permanent screen was built in front of the stage. Little Rock-born actor Gil Gerard took his first date to this theater in 1955 with no idea he would one day be on the silver screen himself. Most notably, in his feature-length 1979 pilot episode of Buck Rogers and the 25th Century, months before it broadcast on TV. But sadly, Gerard wouldn't have been able to see himself in that movie downtown because the Arkansas Theater closed 2 years earlier in 1977. It was the last of the downtown theaters. The competition with suburban theater chains was just too much to bear. In 1980, the Kempner family gave the theater to the University of Arkansas Foundation, and it was raised in 1995, and it's now a parking lot. But the good news is we still have the Arkansas Rep on a resurgent Main Street. Thank you, Will, and the team. The recently renovated Robinson Center and the nearly decade-old Ron Robinson Theater, with plans for a new rehearsal hall for the symphony and a performing arts theater inside the Museum of Fine Arts' new facility. All of these are downtown and still offering world-class stage plays and musicals, traveling Broadway shows, concerts, and film screenings, much like the Kempner Opera House did back in its heyday. And that's our Illuminating the Rock story for this week. And now I'd like for City Director Antoine Phillips, a proud member of the Rep Board, to introduce and moderate today's outstanding program. Antoine? You do it from here, then.
I'll do the introduction from here, if that's okay, President Peacock. Well, thank you. And shout out to my fellow city director, Director Peck. Good to see you this morning. We're going to start by introducing my friend, and I'm happy to know famous people, right? So I want to start with my friend Will Trice. If you would join me on stage, and I'll give a little brief background about Will. Absolute, show him some love. Wave to the people, Will. Will is the executive director of the Rep, and he came here in 2019. Perfect timing, right? Before he came to Little Rock, you worked on, I think, over 30 Broadway shows, and as a 3-time Tony winner. I think that deserves a round of applause too. And I got the shows here. All the Way, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and the Gershons, Porgy and Bess are the shows, right?
Yep.
I got it right. I know how to read.
Well done.
Thank you. Also, people don't know, in addition to his theater talent, Will Smart, you got a degree at SMU and Northwestern.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that true?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, have a seat. I'll join you in a second. And then our special guest of the hour, Judge Reinhold, if you will join us on stage, who needs no introduction.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Judge is famous. Is that enough? Can I say more than that?
Yes.
Okay. Judge has appeared in over 75 motion pictures.
76.
76, all right. Emmy nominated for your role as a close talker on Seinfeld.
Should have won.
Should have won. Don't get too close now, Judge. No, I'm teasing. And obviously, I think you're a rare company as a actor who's played in multiple trilogies.
Yeah.
Santa Claus 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, and 3.
And 4.
And 4,
Yeah.
which just wrapped up in December, as I understand it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Coming soon, so we'll make sure to go check that out. In addition, Judd, I would also say you recently completed work on an indie film, correct? Highly Functional.
Oh, yeah, that's being cut now, but I just wrapped up Beverly Hills Cop 4.
Okay, absolutely. And get us started, and probably your most famous original role, Fast Time at Ridgemont High, correct?
In the teenage years.
And we're gonna get started by showing a video of some of your highlights,
Okay.
and then we'll do the panel. Have a seat, Judge. Video, please.
Reverse the charge if they accept their home. Or you can go overseas, speak Japanese, buy a new Sony. They make great TVs. Do the Watusi, watch I Love Lucy too. Don't let nobody tell you this.
Extend. Pull opening. Wow. Release safety. Aim through there. Push this. How'd you like a behind-the-scenes tour?
Really? You could do that?
Easily.
It wouldn't be any trouble?
Of course not.
When do you go?
How about right now?
I'm ready. Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, let me get my coat.
Elaine, what do you say?
Well, I don't think so, Aaron. I have plans.
Oh. How about you, Jerry? I'm smart. You could examine the artwork up close. Maybe I'll try and catch up with you. I was 3. And it was an Oscar Mayer weenie whistle. Christmas came, no weenie whistle. And that's when I stopped believing.
You were 3?
Yeah.
Look out below.
A weenie whistle.
All rise for acting's highest honor, Judge Reinhold.
Judge Reinhold is neither a real judge nor has he received acting's highest honor.
Well, it looks like we've got a mistrial. But on the plus side, we've also got a hung jury. Hit it.
Thank you, thank you. Well, am I on? Am I on? Am I on? Awesome. Well, that was awesome.
I carry it around with me everywhere.
As you should, especially if you're going to say that you should have been nominated for the Emmy. You have to show the video, right? I mean, that you should have won the Emmy, excuse me. But you're in Little Rock now. We're talking about Laughter on the 23rd floor. So Will, why don't you kind of set the stage about the show that's coming up, and then we'll let Judge talk about his role.
Yeah, it's a play by Neil Simon. It was actually, I think, his last on Broadway. This was it after or before Lost in Yonkers? One of the two was his last. Was it after? Okay. And it's fictional, but it's a bit of an autobiography, as a lot of Neil Simon's work was. And this is specifically about the time that he spent with his brother Danny in the writer's room of Your Show of Shows, which was Sid Caesar and Imogen Coca's kind of variety sketch comedy show in the 50s. And it was a heck of a writer's room. Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, Larry Gilbert, and
Later Woody Allen.
Because yeah, it's also, as a lot of sort of semi-fictional, semi-autobiographical stuff, it's a lot of things and people and settings are kind of an amalgamation of multiple things. But it's Your Show of Shows, and then also Caesar's Hour, which was the follow-up to that, which also ran for several years. And
Which was 60 million people every Saturday night for an hour and a half with a clean slate on Monday, not knowing what they were going to do. Sorry.
Kind of
Yeah.
like the original sketch show, essentially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, this is what Saturday Night Live was, like, and like you said, this is also in the days of, 3 channels, maybe 4 channels. So the concentration of viewership across the country there's nothing to compare it to now, with so much content and so many services and so many cable channels and whatnot.
Why did you put content in air quotes? I'm teasing.
Yeah, it's a cringy term, but it's also accurate. So this is a great play about his time there and what it was like to put on a show like this, also during the blacklist period, and the pressures that they were getting from the government, which then was filtered through corporate of the network that they were at,
NBC.
and then it's just funny. It's an ode to comedy. It's a comedy about comedy and kind of the art of making people laugh. And if any of you have ever been friends with comedians or just friends with funny people in general,
I'm sorry.
There's a bit of a there's a lot of psychology there with funny people, truly funny people, and their sort of never-ending quest to get a laugh and to get a laugh from each other and to make each other laugh and to entertain each other. And so it's about that dynamic as well, and how gloriously needy they all are.
So with that being said, Judge, what's your role in Laughter on the 23rd Floor?
Well, my character is based on Sid Caesar. Luckily, I'm not called to do all the things that he could do. It's really a love letter to him. These guys were all in their early 20s. Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, Larry Gelbart went on to write Tootsie and the TV show MASH. These were brilliant people, but they were flying by the seat of their pants. And so it's based on Sid, and he's very shrewd. One thing about Simon is he's very shrewd about his autobiographical, what he brings to it. He never wanted to be maudlin. I've read a lot about him. His first wife died tragically and was really the love of his life. And he ended up writing a play about it called Chapter 2, so he could talk to her, but it was still funny. It was still funny. And so there's a tremendous amount of humanity, but that's sometimes very easily overlooked because the writing is really, it's really funny, but there's always that layer, and we're excited to explore that. So I'm playing somebody who's based on someone who really started Neil out.
And talk to us, Judge, with the transition. We see you in movies, we see you on TV, but now live theater in front of a bunch of Little Rock folks. What's that transition like?
It's the best. I'm already having a good time. It's great to be here with you all. I've heard about Club 99. I feel like I've really arrived. And
it's nothing like Club 100, but
I think I was there in New York. No, I'm very rarely called upon to bring whatever I have to the community, and so it's a terrific kickoff for me to be here and to bring my adopted town something that I can do and hopefully that they can enjoy. And so this is just great for me to be here and to offer what I can bring, because acting doesn't lend itself to like mechanical stuff, or I usually hold the flashlight in my relationship. My wife fixes it. So yeah, that
me too. My wife is
yeah?
more handy than I am. So I
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, the reason I said that is because it's great for me to bring what I can bring, to everybody, and theater's lovely. The audiences, it was great to go to Guys and Dolls and see how appreciative everybody was. And we're going to bring something extremely funny. We started talking, I think, in 2019, and then the world closed, and we kept talking. I was kind of adamant, not that I had to be, but a couple times I had to say to Will, look, I don't want to bring anything thought provoking. No, it can't be thought provoking. And the reason why is because we were all going through so much. And it was kind of hard to find a straight comedy, a contemporary comedy.
Let's talk about
Yeah.
that process, because I know that there's a video we want to show, but talk about that process. How do you decide, Will, as the executive director at the Rep, what show fits what Judge was getting at, what we need here in Little Rock? How you make those decisions?
There's a lot of moving parts, and it all exists in the context of a season, which for the Rep's current main stage season, that's like 5 slots, and us being really the only kind of professional resident theater here in town, and we feel a responsibility to sort of represent the canon in general and sort of what's happening in professional theater in general, versus if we were in a much larger city that had a ton of professional theater companies. Well, they can start to specialize and have little niches, and like, we only do, new plays about climate control, or but we like to have variety, and we prioritize that. So we want to have musicals, and we want to have plays, and we want to make sure that there's a diversity of writers, and viewpoints and stories. So that in and of itself, just making sure you're kind of checking all those boxes and having a nice scatter plot in terms of content is important. Also, kind of the recognizability of titles is important. The Rep is, for better or worse, very dependent on single ticket sales versus subscription sales. So the specific show each time and how many tickets we sell to that is essential to us breaking even or not. People tend to buy tickets to something that they know about, or something that has a hook to it. People also buy tickets to see people,
Like Judge,
and that was very true of my time in New York producing commercial theater. That's people want to see people, and that's what's essential about live theater is that you're in the room, you're sharing space and air with the artist, and you're seeing what they do. And so it makes that kind of fundamental quality of like, who is it you're seeing? Do you have some sort of relationship with them? Do you know them somehow? It makes it very important. And I also think I look for opportunities to present stories and to celebrate artists that have some sort of connection to here. And like he said, it's kind of become your adopted home because of Amy. And so because we're here, and we're a regional theater, we're a resident theater, we're not content. It's not just about the story that you could see on Netflix, or you could see even in the movie theater. We're creating this production for this community. And so it having some sort of connection to that, be it with the artist, is very important. Now,
or the artist's wife, making sure that he gets involved.
Yeah.
No, there was no pressure. But I do. My wife is 3rd generation Arkansan, and I have a lot of family here. And so that's exciting for me.
And in terms of a content of a show, I still think that this show, even though it's straight up comedy and it's about comedy, it's also kind of thought provoking. Don't tell him. But my sweet spot is if you are being thoroughly entertained and you are laughing through the live experience of the show, and then you get in your car and you start thinking about a little bit more about what you saw, and you start having a conversation with who you went with, and you're like, oh man, yeah, that's true, man, I never thought about that. And that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Like
I'm not opposed to that.
we'll make you laugh first, though, right? So, Judd, I think you had a clip that you wanted to show us about the Laughter on 23rd.
Yeah, this is very early television. But first of all, we're really, really lucky. One of the things that we're fortunate to have, as well as an artistic director, is a bridge between his relationships in New York, and he's brought us a really wonderful director named Ari Edelman, and to thoroughly embarrass him, I'd like him to just no stand up. Okay, anyway, okay, you know what? He may stand up after the show. If the show goes well, he'll stand up. But anyway, we're very fortunate to have, extremely fortunate to have him and his experience with comedy. What was the question?
No, about the clip, because I want to talk about some of your other work, but obviously we're here to talk about Laughter on 23rd floor.
Well, no, we brought the clip because we want to give context for people that weren't around in 1953.
Like me.
Yeah, and me. But this guy was a powerhouse, and just to set it up, to give you a context, in 1953, television was in such an infant stage. On one interview I watched, Sid Caesar talked about NBC only had like 4 or 5 cameras. They had to move them from Yankee Stadium or whatever and get them back to the theater. And he took it on himself. They asked him if he wanted half an hour. The Honeymooners was a half an hour. He really asked for it when he said, I want to do an hour and a half, which 39 weeks a year was just an incredible.
A lot of content, right, Will?
A lot of content.
Yeah. So we brought this clip to introduce Sid Caesar and what the play is based on and in that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we roll it?
In the 1940s, some people believed television was merely a passing fad. Early broadcasts were really more than crudely televised vaudeville and radio shows that failed to capitalize on the power and versatility of the medium. Then on January 28th, 1949, a talented kid from Yonkers, New York, burst onto the small screen. Television was growing up, and Sid Caesar was its brightest star.
Sid was arguably the greatest sketch comedian of all time.
Totally original, hilariously funny, and prodigiously gifted.
Listen, will you send everybody out there one man over very fast? Understand? Look, I want you to get that same page 1, same page 1, and same page 3. And I'll make the 2 pages on page 5. That's right. I'll have the colors on page 6. And come here right up here right away because I need them.
Sid Caesar was tailor-made for the infant medium. He possessed an incredible arsenal of natural talents, including razor-sharp comic timing, a powerful stage presence, an incredibly wide range of facial expressions, and an unmatched gift for verbal gymnastics.
We need to do it. I do it. Let's see how you get it. I mean, like we started. That's swell. That's swell. That's swell. And what?
Television was Caesar's playground. It was open, it was new, it offered unlimited possibilities, variety, satire, sitcom. Sid led his team of creative geniuses as they invented the language of television comedy.
Saturday Night Live, a sitcom, and look at it now, and watch how people do it, and watch what the setups are, and then go look at an old Sid Caesar film, and you can see where all the stuff comes from.
Somebody drove a car right through the front window.
Sid was the only person that was doing a satire on opera, on ballet, on classical music, on Italian movies, on German movies. You know, they were done with such impeccable production.
We'll smack this picture and make it over in sound. We'll hear the sound of hoofbeats. We'll hear cannons roar. We'll hear birds singing. Rex, my boy, Rex, you realize what talking movies will mean for you? At last!
Caesar's writers were the true dream team of comedy. In the second half of the 20th century, they would be responsible for countless Academy Award-winning films, Emmy Award-winning television series, and Tony Award-winning plays.
It was like a university, the University of Comedy, and it was like the Harvard of comedy.
And they all credit their success to their apprenticeship with Sid Caesar.
He really educated all of us, and he was a real genius.
So Sid really, he met the moment like other great people and other politicians, leaders. He really was a man for the moment. And when a lot of people didn't know what to do with it. So it was a very exciting time, and he was the guy, you know.
So we're looking forward to him. Before we switch gears, because we do want to talk about some of your yes, that's the right word. We'll give a plug to everyone. I know we'll circulate it among the Rotary email, but when is the show running and all those details?
First performance is February 1st. It'll run through the 19th, Tuesday through Sundays.
With a possible extension.
With a possible extension.
But don't wait till the possible
Don't
extension.
come
right?
in the first week and then tell all of your friends. www.therep.org, 501-378-0405.
We'll get all that in writing, but I wanted you to give you a chance to give a plug.
Honestly, I know we're not really here to plug the thing, but I can say sincerely that if you don't float out with endorphins, you can probably get your money back.
No, you can't.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. No. Okay. No. Oh, okay. Let me rephrase that. If you don't float out on endorphins, it's probably your fault and you can't get your money.
There you go. That works better. So Joe, let's kind of take a step back. No, you have a theater training background. When did you know that comedy was where you would excel?
Well, that was kind of decided for me. People seem to respond to me more in that genre.
Did you try to be something other than funny?
Yeah, I did a bunch of different plays, and I went to 3 different liberal arts colleges in the South. I wasn't really concerned about graduating. I'd find out the play schedule and try to get into that school because I wanted to play that role. So I ended up at North Carolina School of the Arts, University of Virginia, and then finally got my master's degree at the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater, where I met my first professional actors. But anyway, to answer your question, I've heard this story before. I followed a lovely girl into drama class after school in 10th grade, my sophomore year. And I was told that in order to participate in the class or to stay and be around her, I'd have to read for the play that they were doing. And I read for it and I got the lead in it. And suddenly people were laughing and I felt more comfortable. A part of the pathology as Will alluded to, felt more comfortable in a crowded theater with people laughing than I did normally, which is odd.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't know I was going to go out and make movies and have a career, but I felt like I'd really found my calling, and it's a good thing because I wasn't much of an academic. So,
well, you've been successful, so I think it's worked out for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Let's talk about that. I mean, when did you get that call? When did we know that this was?
Oh, I think it was.
I remember it.
Yeah, because we were originally supposed to go in October, and to his credit, Will made it. He knew I felt bad, but he just made it work. And luckily, he knew I really wanted to bring this. We really wanted to bring the show. We fell in love with it. And we'd approached everything kind of gingerly, but once we were invested in it, we really wanted to bring it. So we just pushed it back. So we shot the film in September and October, and I reprised a role that I had originated 40 years previously, which was just wild.
What about that? A lot of people don't get
Yeah.
to bring back roles that
Oh,
are older than I
Very
am.
small club. Yeah, I know. We
Just
were
want to
aware.
slide that in case anybody was
Yeah.
wondering.
Well, Tom Cruise recently did it with Maverick. Okay.
Right.
We were trying to.
So you and Tom Cruise kind of the same
Oh,
level
yeah.
actor, right?
No, Eddie got in the back seat of the car. John and I, my partner and I, were sitting in the front, and before we were doing anything, and he looks at us and he goes, "Well, at least we still resemble the people we played." It was amazing. It didn't feel like we were forcing anything. That's one of the good things about the plot. The plot doesn't sell us as young people. But also, I think one of the most amazing things for us really was that the chemistry was still there. You know, it hadn't gone anywhere. And when the three of us worked together, or when I worked with Eddie, it was effortless and fun. And that's just amazing. I mean, that's just chemistry. So
That's awesome. Looking forward to. I'm a big Beverly Hills Cop fan growing up, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. Switching gears a little bit, Will, before we get to our Q&A, I know President Peacock's going to give me the sign here shortly. Give us a big picture look at the rep. Obviously, 2020 affected everyone, but probably the theater business more than most. So how have we navigated, and what does the future hold for the rep?
I mean, we are still navigating it as an industry. You know, when the pandemic hit, like the immediate effects were obvious, right? Like no one was going anywhere, no one was getting in groups of people, no one was sharing space, and that's what theater is. You can't do what we do from home. You can't do it remotely.
No Zoom shows.
Yeah, no. Well, actually, there was a lot of really, really bad Zoom shows happening around the country. But you know, even as you know, restrictions lifted and people started to get out sort of slowly but surely, and now it sort of feels like we're back at a new normal. I'll be honest, it's not what it was. That is across the country. That's Broadway. That's movie theaters. You know, and so I think it's still I think there's still a question as to kind of what our ultimate entertainment habits are where they're gonna settle at. If we're still in a settling, or if we've settled. Depending on what that is, like all of us sort of practitioners, all of us, you know, providers of live entertainment, we'll have to figure out how to make that work.
Yep. Okay. And before we open it up for questions, I always want to ask super famous people like you, Judge, what are you most known as when people stop you? Are they stopping you as a close talker from Beverly Hills Cop? What are you getting stopped at the most?
fortunate to say it depends on the season. Because
explain.
Well, the Santa Claus is a perennial
right
now, and it's a part of people's growing up now. And it came out in '94. So from October to the end of February, for people that refuse to take their Christmas trees down, I guess, it's very, very much. And what's fun is kids don't know Judge, they know Neil.
Right.
And so they say, look, there's Neil. And they ask me questions about the North Pole and stuff. And so
what's your answers?
Oh, I just go on, and my wife is amazed at how much I can, BS a kid. But I play into the fantasy. Okay, probably Beverly Hills Cop.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a global sensation. It made Eddie the first African-American box office champ, Sidney Poitier being the first Black movie star, but Eddie was the first global box office champ. So in that respect, I was kind of like Jackie Robinson's best friend, And yeah, it was a phenomena. It really was. And we're excited. Yeah, we're excited to bring it back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll open it up. I think we have a few minutes before we have to stop. Open it up for some questions. Yeah, go ahead.
The play you first read with 10th grade 1, and tell me what the role of Helen does.
And I'll repeat the question. What was the play you read for in
It
10th
was
grade?
it was pretty highbrow. We were very fortunate. She was had taught college, and my first play was a Molière. It was a classical comedy farce by Molière, a great French playwright, and it had Elizabethan wigs and these corsets. Oh my! And yeah, but it was farcical. So I had a terrific introduction.
And you had a second question?
Oh,
What is Helen's role in the play?
Well, Helen is she's our caretaker. She looks after the writers, and she's extremely reliable, and she kind of
Who's Helen, Judge, for those who don't know?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Finley Daniel is playing Kenny's niece. Yeah, Finley Daniel, and she's really lovely, and there is a contrast between the writers and her, because she's very analytical and very resourceful, and is always seems to be she's like the grown up in the room. So,
Were you gonna jump in there, Will, before we take the next question?
And she's the character is also an aspiring writer herself, and that's why she's there. And so there's a kind of dynamic of that, of sort of being on the administrative side of things, but wanting to be on the creative side of things. And there's a really funny part where she gets put to the test to like be funny on the spot.
But you got to come to the
nightmare
rep to see
scenario.
that part, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, don't give it away, Will. Got to tease them a little bit. Any other questions? Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you keep the weenie whistle?
Whole collection. I have one that glows in the dark. I have a gold plated one. I have literally, and this is not an exaggeration, I've been stalked by a giant Wienermobile. They knocked on my door here, and I wasn't real happy to find out who told them where the Wienermobile could find me. But yeah, look, that's an example of you really don't know where your career is going to go. I never anticipated or aspired to have a connection, deep spiritual connection with the weenie whistle. But you just don't know. You just never know.
I'll go here, then come back across the room. Yes, you.
Affect my what? Oh.
I'll repeat the question. She said, how does your ties to Arkansas affect the roles you get as an actor?
I don't think geographically. One thing the pandemic has brought, one advantage, it's always great to see a silver lining, is nobody really wants to go into a room and audition. Nobody really does in their right mind. And so we can do that by Zoom now. And also directors and producers would love to see tape. So we have some really nice equipment, and I just lay it down. And
don't you just send that 2-minute video you showed us? Isn't that enough?
No, because that's all too long ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I got a more update one. Yeah.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
The question is, can comedies that made fun of things that are probably not politically correct these days, will we see that in the future, in your opinion?
That's a really great question. We sure hope so.
There's still great comedy happening, there's still, there's specials coming out every day on Netflix that are truly funny. And I do think the subject matter is changing, but we all still have life experiences, and we all still have funny things happen to us. So
White Lotus is a satire.
Yeah.
On people with way too much money and no philanthropic interests. So they
So
are.
we can still make fun of people.
Yeah, but I gotta say, it's harder. I
Yeah.
have friends that are comics and they can't play colleges anymore, because everybody's too sensitive. I think I think there's a beautiful thing in laughter. I think there's a beautiful, not derisiveness. We're talking about laughing with each other about each other. And the spirit behind something. And it's sad that they feel they can't play colleges because the culture police is going to come after them. And actually Chris Rock, who I met recently at I've known him for a while. He calls them enemies of laughter. Don't be an enemy of laughter. So everybody, hopefully we're just going through this stage where everybody's trying to be respectful of everybody else,
Right.
but not to the point where we can't laugh.
It's a good question. I think Kelly. Give us a little background on Stripes. I think
Yes.
Kelly was taking a shot at me that I didn't include that in your introduction. I
No,
felt the
that's
hit,
okay.
Kelly. I felt it.
I was barely in it, but it was really what Neil Simon said about working with Sid and having it be the Harvard of comedy, even though my experience only lasted 3 months. It was profound for me to work with those guys. For any fan of Stripes, it was originally titled Cheech and Chong Goes to the Army. And so they had, when they couldn't make a deal with Columbia, they fell out. Bill had just done a movie called Meatballs, and Ivan Reitman, he was one of my early mentors who died last year unexpectedly, decided to modify the comedy. We were really writing it as we went along. What was fascinating to me was Harold and Bill with their incredible ingenuity, and actually that there was a great connection to what Sid and the guys did and what Bill and Harold did. I'm glad you brought it up because it was truly the same thing. They'd go into Bill's trailer, they'd come up with something wonderful, come out, and they wanted to do it on the fly. So they just kind of mumble it for the camera moves. And then when the camera was on, some really brilliant stuff happened, especially in Bill's monologues. And if you ever do see the movie again, I slide my hand in my pocket, and we all had our tricks to keep ourselves from laughing and blowing the take. And I would end up the day with like blood blisters and bruises. And John Candy he always looks down and like this. And so anyway, that's an interesting question for me because I really watched the ingenuity and the resourcefulness of the characters that were going to be playing in Laughter on the 23rd Floor. Those guys were the evolution of what this play's about. So yeah, I learned a lot.
Okay, I think that's it according to President Peacock. So we're going to call it. I'm sorry I didn't get to all the questions, but I will say, do not be an enemy of laughter by not going to see the show at the Rep, right? So if you don't go see the show at the Rep, can we call them enemies of laughter?
Yeah.
Don't be that person.
Hey, thank you guys.
Thanks,
You're
everybody.
amazing. Yeah, hang tight. Antoine, Will, Judge, and Amy, thank you so much for sharing your talents with Little Rock. We're very grateful to have you here. As part of our speaker gifts that we're doing each week, we are giving books by Little Rock Connected authors to all of our speakers. And we're going to give you two today after the program's over, and we'll take a photo. But these books, a selection of them will be given to all our area Little Rock School District libraries and resource centers. And so at the end of the year, they'll be in every speaker's name that was part of our program series this year. So we very much grateful for your time here with us today. Next week, photojournalist and author Chris Usher. Please don't miss it. And thank you for being with us today. We are adjourned.